Hello there, how are you doing today? Okay, what are we speaking about today? Welcome back to another video where I might be talking about random things that you might enjoy listening to. Or at least I hope that you enjoy it. My guilty pleasure, I ain't going nowhere. Yeah. Let me give you a juicy gossip today. Let's talk about dry sex life. I've been putting this off speaking about this one because it's like, Nayna, stop talking about sex. But I really enjoy talking about sex because I think it's just important that we figure this out. Like this whole sexual thing, I think we need to figure it out. And so then talking about a dry sex life is going to be important. So let's dive into the subject. So what does a dry sex life look like? Either you don't enjoy it and you just stay away from it, you just don't like it, or you don't want to actually have sex with this particular person that you're with and it's just like, oh, I don't really want to, like I'm tired all the time, I don't really want to. Or you actually just have nobody and you don't have anybody to even go for it, and you just might be like, you know, fantasizing at home and you don't have nobody to do it with. So here we go. Those are the 3 examples of why you might be having a dry sex life. My guilty pleasure, I ain't going nowhere. Okay, first of all, I have to say the obvious here, right? That I think that sexual pleasure is one of the most beautiful things ever. And actually, I think that in the wrong context, sexual pleasure is a little bit saddening. But then in the next morning, you kind of just feel all revitalized and all like, oh my gosh, I had sex last night. Actually, maybe that's just me because like I don't have sex often because I'm just like so difficult and stuff. But anyways, I feel like sex is uplifting. But at sometimes, like I feel like I need something when the sex is finished. Like I need to consume something that fills in this gap, and I feel like this gap is like, well actually I feel like the gap is actually the fact that we don't know what God is and we don't know who we are, and then here we are being this intimate moment with somebody else, and then it's like, okay, what did we just do that for? And actually maybe it is because like the connection's not fully there in terms of like all of the love and all of that stuff, and maybe if it was, we wouldn't like desire things afterwards, like smoking or drinking or eating or doing something, if it was like fulfilling in all levels. And I tend to have that a lot, like I just want to smoke after I have sex, and maybe it is because the emotional fulfillment is not fully fulfilled. But I don't have a dry appetite like that anyway, so we're talking about dryness. We're not talking about lack of emotional fulfillment, which that's another subject. We're talking about actual dry sex life. So scenario number 1, you actually, let me leave that one to last. Scenario number 2, you have somebody and you don't want to have sex with them. I feel like, right, when we get to that point, right, there's so many things are coming into my head, because like either it's a lack of connection, so you actually don't desire each other anymore, and then some people are like, yeah, I might desire them, I do, but just like something just like tells me no. And I feel like, right, we kind of lie to ourselves a lot. Like I feel like when your body is telling you I don't want something, that speaks volumes, but you're just not listening to what that means. And I feel like we just lie to ourselves when we say that it's fine, it's just like a phase. I just feel like something is missing from the connection. That's why your sex is dry, because something is missing. And either it has been tarnished with past experiences, that's why you don't want it anymore, or something went wrong. Again, there's lack of something that wasn't in the sexual experience, and that's why you don't want it anymore. So something is missing from your sexual experience, and that's why you don't want it. Something is missing. And our brains will try to justify, no, nothing is missing because they are the perfect this, they are the perfect that. But if they were, you would want to rip off their clothes because... Okay, so then let's go to point 1 of people who actually don't like sex, right? Oh no! And I feel like we all have this different type of language when it gets to sex. Some people want to be dominated. Some people want to be nurtured. Some people want both. Some people, I don't know what else there is, but there's just probably loads of different faces and appetites to how you want to be sexually aroused, how you want to experience sex. And actually, we've already concluded that girls, a lot of women, they actually don't orgasm inside. So then actually, that will conclude a dry sex life in the end anyway. Because when the desire for the man, even though you're not orgasming, you're still desiring him because you want him inside of you, and eventually when that always leads to nothing, which to loads of women it does, then you end up just like not wanting to do the same cycle. So many things have happened that may be a little bit tarnishing, like little arguments or little things, I don't know, when you just get used to people and it just becomes a little bit less exciting. If you're not orgasming, then you don't really have good reason to be having sex if you're not in that first state of like really wanting somebody just to touch them and stuff, right? But let's go back to the first one again of like women who, sorry, I even put it just women because this is like so, you know, women are mostly the ones with this problem, but actually let me not just say women because there might be a lot of men as well. But something is not being done right? The arousal part of sex is not being done to your taste, to your satisfaction, to your pace, and therefore you reject it. And you see the world and how they usually do the pace of sex or the arousal of sex. You see how others do it and you're just like, no. And then it probably takes somebody who is patient and willing to go through a conversation with you to understand how it is that you do want to be aroused. Because I do feel like we have these natural tendencies of the body, but it's connected to the mind, right? So if the mind has been tarnished, or if the mind has been scared, or if the mind has come to a conclusion that is not, you know, that it has an irritating view on sex, then of course you're going to experience that when people try to arouse you, because your brain is connected to a annoying thought about it. And actually it's all born in the brain, and sometimes your body does take over. If you don't allow yourself to think, your body does take over, and that's usually when you do kind of like desire somebody like fully, is when you allow your body to take over. But it is a mind game. So if your mind has been, it's mostly a mind game. So if your mind has been tarnished towards sex or sexual things, then you are probably going to suffer with a dry sex life. And I think in that case it does take somebody to come along and change your mind through a pace that your mind agrees with. And I feel like life is magical in that way. It will give you the perfect person to do that for if you desire it. Obviously if you don't desire it, in terms of like, you have to think about it like, oh, I want that to change. Then you have to start feeling like, oh, imagine if I was like this. And then so then your thinking and your feelings start to align to want you to change, and then you will attract somebody who will help you to experience something different than what you already have. But your thinking and your feeling has to align for you to agree that that's what you want, for that to be attracted, or for that to enter, or for that to come about in some way. I don't like the word attraction because I just feel like it's annoying. Like, because if I'm sad, I don't want to attract more sadness. Thank you. Go away. Leave me alone. So I don't like the word attracting, but I think it is a decision. And when you make the decision, life will show you the opportunity to do that. And the decision comes in two ways, in the thinking and in the feeling. And both of them have to want the same thing for then life to present the opportunity. Maybe people who are a little bit tarnished, like the ones who actually hate sex now, maybe they would benefit from listening to people who are absolutely in love with sex and the reasons why they would be in love with sex. So then they can maybe start to put new ideas into their head. And so then let's move on to the second scenario. You do have a partner, but you don't really desire them, and you don't really want to have sex with them, and you don't know why. Everything about them is perfect. You don't know why. I feel like we have to start again in scenarios like, if you want to stay together and if you feel like you have a future together, then I feel like we have to start from the start. We have to begin from the start again, where you just strip it back to conversations. And again, it might take two people to be really mature, because the brain is so picky sometimes that if you just do one little wrong thing, it will just cut it off and be like, oh no thank you, because the brain needs to be entertained. So I think it takes two emotionally intelligent people to be able to get past dry sex if you want to be together. And I guess that when you get with somebody new, your brain doesn't have those stored memories about this person, therefore the thinking process begins anew. So then you're not tarnished, you don't have these experiences, you don't have these irritations, and then you can just start again where you're entertained in your brain. And so then if you want to stay with somebody that you have a dry sex life with, the two of you have to be emotionally intelligent to understand what it takes to heal that, which is to start the mind game all over again. Take your time with the mind game all over again. It's like you're getting to know each other all over again, and you really have to play that game, not just pretend to get to know each other, but really get to know each other by those conversations, those arousing conversations. Just leave it at conversations, because when you meet somebody new, you don't just have a conversation then the next day you have sex. You know, there's loads of conversations before you get to that point, and I feel like you have to treat it like that new thing once again and really dive into it, so then you can recreate that new process where your brain gets to reset and experience something different than the usual thing it's experiencing. And And also maybe another step to long-term relationships where it's gone dry is to actually be honest about what it is that you're missing. And again, if you love each other and you're both emotionally clever and you're emotionally intelligent, then you would, and you love each other, you would stick around and do the work, which is speaking, accepting, trying, speaking, accepting, trying, until you can reset the mind and have a new experience where it's not dry anymore. Because it's all to do with the mind. Is the mind entertained? Is the mind excited? Is the mind desiring? Because if we switch off the mind, which is sometimes impossible, if we switch off the mind and somebody starts to play with you, of course you're going to be aroused. And when I say switching off the mind, I mean having no prior relationship to that person. Your body would naturally be aroused because your mind will be like, you're touching me here. But because you have all of these like prior experiences to them, you just put loads of information on top of them while they're touching you or doing whatever to arouse you to get you to want sex, that you don't allow it. No. And so if you don't have anybody and you're just like desiring sex, or not, and you just don't have anybody, again, does it take listening to people talking about sex for you to start changing your mind and start changing your feeling to align together to then experience new things in life? Because I do think that sexual experiences is beautiful. Yeah. I think it's beautiful to like really desire somebody. Whoa. Like really want them. And then to have them and to want them as you're having them. I call that desire and passion. And so then I feel like that's a beautiful thing that two people can have together. And I feel like that's an ingredient that we don't really pay attention to. Like when we have sex with somebody, we might just be like, oh, this is gonna feel good, so let me do it. Or, oh, this is gonna give me an orgasm, let me do it. Whereas I feel like we should stop doing that and start having sexual experiences where the desire for them, like I want you, not necessarily like just this act of sex, but I want you in the act of sex. Like I want you. And I feel like that desire for people, for one another, makes the sex even more intense because you want them. You don't just want the sex, you want them and them in the sex. And if it was somebody else that you don't want it, you want them. And I feel like that desire makes sex even more beautiful and intense, and that fulfillment of like having what you desire. Wow. And so then if you don't desire people like that, so let's strip it back to step one. If you don't desire people like that and you're just like, no, humans are humans, I could just have whatever one, and no, I don't really think of humans that way, they're just whoever's whoever. If that's how you view humans, I think that you should press pause. And women, I don't know why, like I feel like women are a little bit more sensitive in this area, because in my experience, men, they can just have sex with whoever and it's fine, whereas women, they're the ones that are a little bit picky, but then they force themselves to do things that they don't really want to do. And I feel like we should just literally pause, step back and observe life. Like, do I desire you? And don't answer to people who call you, you know, like, oh, can I have sex with you? Like, just pause and just ignore and just observe and see who calls that passion inside of you, and just wait, you know, don't rush into sleeping with whoever and doing things that you don't really want to do. Just wait and hear the desire come naturally in whoever you see. And then I feel like we can have beautiful sexual experiences through real desire, deep desire, and then that fulfillment of having the desire come true in real life. So yeah, I feel like healing a dry sex life is about playing a mind game, resetting the mind to desiring something that you really want and then having it. If you have traumas about that, you need somebody to work with you to reset your mind by speaking about lots of things, going over things, and then starting again. And if you just can't get past things with this particular person and you tried everything, you just can't do it, I feel like maybe you should try with somebody else. Whoa. I'm all about that. Move on. And actually, it would be good to like have somebody who has these problems and like I actually speak to them face, because right now I'm just speaking to my own self, and for me I'm just like, all right, well, I'm moving on because this is not working. Whereas if somebody was like, no, we don't want to move on, then I could ask them questions and be like, okay, but so why do you not want to move on? And what do you fancy about them? And you know, their hair and you know, their shoulders, why don't you just concentrate on that for a moment? You know, just think about the shoulders and you know, play around with that. Like, I feel like there's a lot of things that we can try out in this slow motion, so you can reset your brain to desiring what it is that you are experiencing. If you're not desiring it in that deep wanting level, then of course it's going to be dry. And so then we play the mind game to desire it, or we move on to somebody where you're gonna desire them anyway because they're new. Alright, well, having said all of that, if somebody stopped desiring me, I will run a mile and times that by 1,000. If you stop desiring me, no, that is not okay. Oops. But then if we're fighting all the time and I just like hate you most of the time and you hate me most of the time and you tell me I don't desire you, then I'll be like, yeah, of course. And that won't offend me because it's like we fight all the time. Of course you don't desire me. But we just become so accustomed to people and we become attached to them that we don't know how to let it go. And the moment that, for example, if you're not in love anymore and this person decides, okay, well, I'm leaving, like something happens to the brain, we're like, well, you can't leave me. What do you mean you're leaving me? You can't leave me. Like, I don't know why we're crazy this way. Like something ticks and snaps and then we're just like, no, you can't leave me. I do feel like that's something to do with like not knowing who we are, not knowing what God is. I do feel like that's why that happens, because there's no logical explanation why you're not in love one day, then they decide to leave you and then you just turn into a maniac because they left you. And it's like, hold on, you wasn't even in love with that person. Like, why are you crazy about them now because they're leaving you? Yeah, it's weird. And stuff like that again resets the brain. Now you're desiring them, right, until you have sex with them and then you realize that it's all just the same thing. So I do feel like it takes emotional intelligence to grow on both parts. It can't just be fake. It has to be real growth, real change, and then the dryness will become wet. All right, I am finished with this subject. I shall come back with another one. Until next time, have a wonderful time wherever you are. And I hope that you have really good sex and that you really enjoy it and that you just really find your orgasm. Final tip of the day, once again, the G-spot is not at the back of the vagina. The G-spot is at the roof of the vagina. Huh? Yeah? So this is the entrance, right? It's not at the back. You're not trying to hit the back. You're hitting upwards. You're rubbing upwards, right? Upwards, right? Near the entrance as well, like right near the entrance, not that near, but whatever, you know. You're not trying to hit the back, yeah? You're rubbing upwards, okay? Good lesson. See you later. Bye.